So he was the UK's first black entrepreneur. He migrated to England as a child at 3 years old, and he was sort of, you could say, robbed of his faith in a sense. His faith, identity, and everything at such a young age, and I suppose a lot of people can relate to that. In terms of, migrants can relate to sort of that sort of idea of having to sort of find your identity when you sort of move to a different country, and that's what the story is all about. He was a model citizen in the sense that he was a role model to his community and one that he gave back to. And he was an active member of his society as well. His heritage, which I'll go into in the next slide, they all lead to his sense of belonging within his community and within the UK. His story began as that of an African migrant sort of child slave who grew up into an enterprising role model or a model citizen. Who bought properties and voted in elections and ran a successful business, which I believe, many migrants or individuals can actually relate to him and be inspired by his story. And not just migrants, you can always relate to somebody that's sort of come from nothing and sort of tried to build their way up into, something quite successful, which is always great. His early life is vague and underdocumented. The date of his birth is thought to be 1763. He was born in a small town, a small village in Sierra Leone, which became a British colony in 1787. But he migrated to the UK at the age of 3 in early 1766. He was taken to Wolverhampton as a child when he got here. And at the time, black servants were considered fashionable and a sign of wealth in society. So during that period, his owners gave him an English name. His birth name still remains unknown. He was given to the Molyneux family. They lived in this big house, and the family owned Molyneux House, which is now the grounds of Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Stadium. He was then christened at St. Peter's Church, and that's where he was named George John Scorpio Africanus. Oh, and these pictures were taken by volunteers from the steering group who have gone to these places and actually visited them and taken the pictures themselves. So again, highlights the hard work with him. He was the Molyneux. Sorry, I'll go. Yeah, his family. The Molyneux name originates from Benjamin Molyneux, a successful local merchant who was a distant relative of the now extinct Earls of Sefton, and he passed the house down on to George Molyneux, who looked after George Africanus and sort of trained him and gave him an education. The family adopted George, and after Benjamin's death, the elder son, this George, not George Africanus, inherited the fortune and sort of took the role of sort of looking after the household and looking after George of Africanus himself. In 1772, there was a legal judgment which made it unlawful to sort of own slaves, slave servants. And many of them sort of had to either return back to Africa or just were homeless. However, George was apprenticed to become a brass founder, and he served out his time in Wolverhampton. And when he completed his apprenticeship, he was then free to sort of travel and work where he wished. and at the age of 18 he moved to Nottingham. The reason for his move is not clear, but the Molyneux family did have connections in the county. I think the Molyneux family originally came from Tabersall, near Mansfield in Nottinghamshire, so that might have been why he moved. But he moved to St. Peter's Parish at the age of 21, and that's where he met a local named Esther. I think that's the marriage certificate that was found. They also got married at St. Peter's Church in Nottingham on the 3rd of August, and the team of volunteers uncovered this through their research. They had 7 children together. Only one daughter survived till adulthood, Hannah. In 1793, he became an entrepreneur, and this was the property they purchased, which is Chandler's Lane in Nottingham. It's now known as Victoria Street. Excuse me. George Africanus worked as a labourer, waiter, and brass founder. But the employment that brought him the most financial success was the Africanus Register of Servants, and that was an employment agency that him and his wife started together, which they operated in their home at 28 Chandler's Lane in Nottingham City Centre. His wife Esther made hats to earn some money. When they saved enough money, they bought the property, and obviously in those days when you sort of buy a property, you're allowed to vote. So that sort of made him quite respected in that community at the time. So yeah, because he was a freeholder, he was entitled to vote locally. So he that's the Nottingham poll book that one of the volunteers found through research, showed that he was sort of an active member of his community, you know, and that he voted. George Africanus died on the 18th of May in 1834, aged 71. He was buried in the churchyard of St Mary's Church in Nottingham's Lace Market on the 25th of May 1834. His grave was uncovered in 2003, and a plaque was later unveiled at the churchyard. His last will and testament, which I also have another picture of there, stated that he was unhappy with his daughter's marriage to husband Samuel Cooper. So he left everything to his wife and his daughter. That's just to sort of try to keep it quick and short, to give you a brief idea of what we've actually found out, well, what the before, because obviously I was just joined shortly before Christmas, but what the steering group actually found out in regards to his heritage. And in regards to responses and successes, one of our, one of our designers actually created a 3D computer image of what George Africanus' house would have looked like, and these were based on plans held at the Nottinghamshire Archives section. And so we've had media interest such as as I mentioned earlier, the Nottingham Post, the BBC ran a short story on him when he received his blue plaque. Nottingham News Centre and other local media inputs and magazines and such. We've also successfully developed a George Africanus website, which is obviously dedicated to his heritage, legacy and his life in Wolverhampton and in Nottingham. We've also had a lot of support from the council, especially in regards to exhibitions that we've been running in Nottingham, sort of at the art galleries and schools. And that's again sort of to get more awareness about his heritage and what he's actually contributed to the history of Nottingham. In In October last year, there was a civic reception held where the Lord Mayor Councillor, Ian Malcolm of Nottingham, presented volunteers with certificates in acknowledgement for all the hard work that they have put in. And I suppose this was the highlight of the project's success so far, as well as recognition of the hard work of the steering group and the volunteers. We also managed to get a blue plaque unveiled, and got a picture there. An 18th century slave who became one of the UK's first black entrepreneurs. So that got commemorated on the 9th of October last year. It was erected on the Mayor Oak pub on Victoria Street in Nottingham, and that's the former home of Africanus. So it was where he lived with his wife, which is quite nice. The group at Belong, the steer group, campaigned to sort of have the plaque erected to highlight his achievements, as he did incredibly well in his time. We've also had large community interest. Since the project commenced to present, we continue to receive high volumes of interest in terms of volunteers sort of participate in the project, and we continue to welcome more volunteers as we go along. In terms of local community interest, we've also had a creation of a dedication beer in honour of Africanus, and they named it the George Africanus Celebration Ale. This was last year, Susanne, yeah. So it runs through from April to July, and it was brewed at Castle Rock, and formally launched at Keen's Head, which was a pub opposite where he was actually buried at St Mary's Church. So that was quite nice in terms of getting the locals involved. Everybody likes it. Future prospects in the pipeline. So I mentioned the Education and Learning Packs at the beginning. We have almost finished those. We are due to sort of have them completed by the end of this month and out, to the schools. They should be going out to years 5, 6 and 7, I believe. So, and also we'll have obviously the exhibitions ongoing into the schools as well. We would like greater community involvement and awareness locally and regionally, and that's more to do with, we'd like to sort of do more community events to get more people involved. At the minute we've kind of focused mainly on the research and just gathering all the information together. We've got that now, and we kind of just want to branch out and get more people involved from the local community, not so much in volunteering, but just in terms of actually getting to know more about his heritage and sort of getting more involved with it. We'd also like to expand research in the heritage of George Africanus and others similar to him. We've actually, I think it was Susanne, one of our volunteers in the research team has found something in relation to him, sorry, not in relation to him, similar figures to George Africanus. I won't go into that because we are still at the early stages of that yet, but that's definitely something we'd like to do. We'd also obviously like to expand in the heritage of George himself. I know he's got one sort of living relative that we're trying to sort of contact, and we're sort of waiting to see how we can go around that without sort of breaking any ethical boundaries or anything like that. Education, communicate and attract large groups of health, yeah. And we've got more projects in the pipeline as well, so it's good. So our funding base has varied and has expanded over the years. To date we've had support from many reputable charities and trusts, so from central and local governments such as the Lottery and the EU, and at Belong we've tried to sort of form many sort of reputable partnerships, and and that's still ongoing, to help support and sustain the charity throughout the years, especially with new projects that we'd like to sort of have. And we'd like to sort of thank all the volunteers and all the funders who have supported our work so far. And I think that's it. Thank you. I hope it wasn't
Any questions? Well, I think it was a very interesting talk.
I'm here from, as I said earlier, from the Friends of Winterbank Hill. And at Winterbank Hall in the early 19th century, the Reed family, who were the oldest, they were campaigners against the slave trade. And I think that a friend of mine who's researching into this, I think she's mentioned that George Africanus actually visited Sheffield and visited Winterbank Hall.
Oh.
So perhaps after the meeting, could we just speak briefly about it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's really interesting.
But from the point, you say the only surviving child is a daughter,
Yeah.
and it's her descent you managed to trace.
That's right, yes, that's right, yeah.
Mm.
But I mean, has there been any contact with, I wasn't sure whether somebody tried and failed, and then we sort of backed off and thought, okay, we'll try and sort of, I mean, basically, we know there's a, yeah, we know there's a surviving relative, but we're just not sure how to approach.
By any chance, I think, was it the 1861 census where you can find out how many instances there are of a surname in use? You haven't tried to see whether any other former slaves were also given or adopted the surname Africanus.
Susanne?
I think it is a name that has been used and has been used before.
By unrelated people.
By unrelated people. But there's quite a firm tracing of the generations up until the early 20th century. Then you're relying on family history networks, which is a little bit less formal. So I think that's why there's been a reluctance to contact or to publicise that living relatives have been discovered.
Okay, well, you're one. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.